Hello, and where's our Muller today? And there she is. Hello, Muller. How are you? Yes, okay. She's pretending that she can't hear us and she's not speaking. All right, so welcome to the Leadership in Flow Asia show, live today every Thursdays in the month of November. And the month of November, what are we talking about? Mindful leadership. And this is Goa Shukmanan from Singapore, one of your hosts for today. And my other host is Muller Billy.
From Malaysia, but right now reporting from Singapore. Okay.
That's right. She is right
Yeah,
now in Singapore.
yeah, and you better give me a warm welcome, and maybe you want to tell audience what I'm doing in Singapore.
Yes. What are you doing in Singapore?
Yeah. Oh, you. I can't believe you did this. Well, since Ashok refuses to give me a warm welcome, Shamini, I hope you are tuned in. You see, this is the kind of welcome I get in Singapore. Well, if you're in Singapore tomorrow, we are having our Leadership Learning Festival. The first one tomorrow, right here in Singapore. And yes, I'm excited to be part of the Leadership Festival in this part of the world. Anyway, so for those who have just joined us, welcome. And if you are in Singapore, know that something exciting is happening tomorrow. And I hope I get to meet some of you. But today is not about me.
Okay. All right. I think Muller is having a.
Before we go on,
Okay, no worries. Muller is lagging some Wi-Fi issues in sunny Singapore. We're supposed to give a warm welcome. So for all those guys who are tuned in, what is the Leadership in Flow Asia show all about? This is a show where we interview leaders, and we interview leaders to be able to understand what drives their personal growth, what drives their leadership growth, and what do they do to drive the business growth, business results in that sense. So we've been interviewing leaders every Thursday since last year, February, and it's been great. Like I say, it's always about interviewing one leader per week. And this week, who do we have? We have Gerald Fernandez. Gerald Fernandez is from Malaysia, right? And he's going to be telling us about market-ready education. Now, we're going to be bringing up Gerald very shortly. Kirtana, if you can help me bring him up, that'll be great. Thank you very much. I just love this when there's a producer at the back, making sure everything works very smoothly. Hi, Gerald. How are you, sir?
Hi, Ashok. I'm good. Good to see you. Where's Malar?
Okay, don't worry about her. I think she's popped up for a while. I think there might be some Wi-Fi issues, but she'll be back. So
Okay.
For everyone who's logged in today, who is Gerald Fernandez? Gerald Fernandez is a gentleman I met. Well, very interestingly, Gerald, I met you during the COVID, right? Online. That's the first time I
Yes.
met you, right?
Yes.
And you're a good friend of Muller, but most importantly, you are a big fan of our show. You've always been inspiring. You've always been giving us ideas on how to raise our levels in the Leadership Flow Asia shows. And we'd like to thank you very much for it.
Most welcome.
All right. So today we're going to be talking about market-ready education. Gerald Fernandez, tell us a little bit about what do you do?
Okay. So I run my own company. It's called Tapro,
Okay.
Tapro.
TAPRO.
There are 4 areas in Tapro. The first is the consulting area. So that is very much business development and marketing consulting. The second part of it is talent acquisition.
Okay.
Third is learning and development, and fourth is events. But events
Okay.
is not really those big flashy events, but very much skewed towards conferences, symposiums, roundtable discussions, so facilitating roundtable discussions. So that's what we do. The 4 areas. A big part of what we do is in the education industry.
Okay. Nice.
Because of where we come from. So myself and my business partner Amy, we spent a lot of years in the education industry. So when we started Tapro, the natural progression was really to start with the education industry. But since then, 10 years after, we now work with a couple of different industries as well.
Okay. So let's talk about that, right? Before I get into understanding what your interest in the tertiary side, tell me, what does TAPRO mean? Does it mean anything at all?
Okay, it does. Tapro is the short form for Talent Acquisition Professionals.
Talent acquisition professional. Okay, thank you very much.
And our tagline is totally about people. So because the 4
people.
Yeah, the four areas that we do is kind of interrelated. So it's an ecosystem that educates people, retains talent, grows talent, and work with people. It's all about people.
Nice, nice, nice. So I'm going to take a couple of steps back now. You
Okay.
mentioned earlier that Tapro naturally just gravitated towards education, right?
Yes.
So tell me, what excites you about education? And can I assume it's tertiary education you're referring to?
Yes, it's tertiary education. Yes.
Okay, great, great. So what really excites you about tertiary education?
Yeah, I mean, I think it goes back way back to the early '90s, right? The early
90s.
'90s, and I think because for me, I've always been in the education industry. The whole family, my father started with a college here called Stanford College in Malaysia, and he spent 40 years there.
Stanford College. Okay. I think there
Stanford
used to be one
College.
in Singapore also. Okay, never mind.
Yes,
All right.
yes, and they were the leaders, right? They were the leaders at one point. So he spent 40 years there. My two elder brothers were in education as well, as
Okay.
lecturers, as administrators. So I think seeing them in the education industry and seeing how they educate people and what happens in the education industry. When I was in Australia and I finished my degree in Australia, the first thing I wanted to do, and I didn't have any other things to do. The first thing I wanted to do is join an education institution to teach because
Really?
I had the passion to educate people. Because I really think like what Nelson Mandela says, right? Education is the most powerful weapon that can change the world, and I
Oh,
think that really is the fact, you know. So I wanted to share the knowledge that I have. I wanted to teach people because I love teaching. I love educating people. Till today, through our learning and development programs, I still do trainings for people. I still
okay.
train people. I still train individuals. So that interest and passion has always been there. So when
Nice.
you see me on a training platform, I automatically just radiate, you know, and it's just I'm a different person on that platform.
I don't know about your training platform, but the way you talk about education, you're already radiating. I can feel the passion in your voice, you know?
Yeah, you know, because I think education just changes everything, you know, and I think education is the keystone to everything that people do.
Okay, tell me a little bit more because here you're saying Nelson Mandela said education is a great weapon. Here you're saying education is a keystone. Can you tell me a little bit more? What do you exactly mean by that? Do you have some stories to share?
Yeah, I mean, I've taught students, you know, in the early when I joined the first institution that I joined in 1997. I started off as a lecturer, a very young lecturer, you know,
Oh,
just after
wow.
graduating, a very young lecturer teaching computer science. So I was
Mhm.
teaching programming, I was teaching multimedia, C language, you know, those sort of things, which I totally don't know now. But at that
Okay.
point, I was teaching that. And and to see the same students that I was teaching, they are now corporate heads, they are leaders in organizations, they are movers and shakers in organizations, and that gives me a lot of joy. That gives me a lot of satisfaction, you know. And when I catch up with them, I still meet up with them,
Nice.
and the kind of things that they do. And I think how they moved to that was through education. You know, having a good academic qualification.
Okay.
And when they move into the industry, also continuous learning. You know, education is a continuous learning process. You know,
Right,
it
right.
never stops. And I think that satisfaction, you know, of seeing them and seeing the students that I taught, at least a little bit, right? A little bit of my effort went into it, maybe 5%, 10% of their success.
Nice.
Yeah. So
Nice.
that gives me a lot of joy.
Nice. Nice.
Yeah.
Okay, so I can see where the joy coming from. Now, so you have been in the space from the 90s, right?
Yes.
Uh, so if I like to go a bit deeper and ask you about market ready education,
Mm.
how would you define it? What does it really mean? Because that's our title today, market ready education, right?
Yeah.
So how do you define? So for all our guests who are all locked in today,
Yeah.
listening to you, right? Can you help us define what is market ready education?
I think market ready education is really about giving graduates or giving students the necessary skills, attributes, and knowledge to get ready into the industry. And what do I mean that by this? It's not just giving them an academic qualification. So it's not just students going in there, doing a diploma, doing a degree, and coming out, but really getting them to have curriculum innovation that's relevant to industry needs. That's number one.
Okay.
Having practical application of knowledge that they use. And this can be done, practical application of knowledge can be used through internships with organizations, gaining that sort of knowledge, even in terms of technological proficiency, soft skills development, industry connection and networks, global perspective, having a global perspective of things. So, for example, someone is studying economics or someone is studying finance. I think the real global perspective is really at my time when I was doing my MBA, that was the time of the global currency crisis in 1990.
Oh, right. 97. Yeah.
Currencies. So
the Asian financial crisis or
Asian
the
financial crisis.
97,
Yes.
right? Yeah.
Yeah. And Enron, remember Enron?
Yes, of course.
Yeah, the case of Enron. So I think having that global perspective of not just Malaysia, but what's happening around the world, having that entrepreneurial mindset, and really at the end, having that lifelong learning orientation or perspective. So I think that's what defines market-ready education.
Okay.
Not just academic qualification, but an academic qualification plus with everything.
Okay. So what I'm hearing from you is market ready education is it's really about acquiring skills attributes, right? That is beyond just the classroom qualifications in that sense. What you
Correct.
can learn,
Yes.
learn beyond. And you talked about curriculum innovation. You talked about practical application, looking at it from a global scenarios and what is happening today in that sense, right? So that is your definition of market ready education. I hear that, it sounds great, but really, do a lot of education certificate or tertiary institutions focus in this area?
I think, to be fair, I think a lot of them are trying to do that. Some
Okay.
are doing
Thank
it
you.
better than others. So if I mean, in Malaysia, we've got almost about 500 private institutions. Private
500.
institutions. Yeah, 500.
Wow.
So if you look at probably the top 10 or top 20, where they have the resources, where they have the financials, where they have the ability and people to do it, they're doing really well. They are combining industry with academia. They are bringing in industry people. They are sending their graduates into good internship programs. They are collaborating with these people, whether it's through research innovative or experiential learning, lifelong learning or DEI or whatever. They are doing a good job. The others are trying to do their bit.
Okay.
But to be fair, if there's no resources and so on, it becomes difficult.
Okay. So what I'm hearing from you is, okay, so I am not, I'm wrong in that sense. You put it there subtly. They said, to be fair, they're all trying very hard. But the
Yes.
ones with a deeper level of resources, whether it's money, manpower, right, ability, are taking the right steps,
Yeah.
right? The rest of them are trying, but within their own scope, they're trying their best, right?
And not to say that you're totally wrong, Ashok, but there are some institutions that are not doing anything at all.
Okay.
So they're just offering a program, offering an academic qualification. So they're not doing anything at all. Yeah.
Right. And now, I don't know, Malar, just jump in. I know you're back. Thank you. Which also means, Gerald, I'll have to keep quiet for a while. Yes.
Hi, Malar. You're muted.
Mute.
Hi. Yes, I was truly muted because, I've managed to make a comeback. Thank you very much. Yeah, continue, Ashok. Let me not interrupt the flow. I think Gerald is on the go, so let him continue going with you.
All right. No worries, ma'am. I have to seek permission. I have in a good schools. Okay, so you're talking about, yes, there are institutions that are doing it right. Some of them are struggling, and some of them are not. Also, I don't know. I mean, to me, if I look at tertiary institutions, right,
Mm.
there was a time if I look maybe probably in the 90s or so, suddenly there was a lot of emphasis about the need to have tertiary education. It
Mm.
was your gateway to not only jobs, ability to open up more possibilities, opportunities, whatever it is, right? And I'm wondering whether there was a lot of that narratives in the past was about get a degree, get a job, so you can get a job. But we then lose out like what Mark Twain was saying, right? He said, what the formal type of education takes away your learning, right? So I'm wondering whether things are changing today,
Mm.
in the way things are approaching, right? Whether the narratives are also changing. Do you see the narratives changing within the tertiary institutions?
I think there's a lot that has changed, Ashok. I've been in the industry for 25 years.
Wow.
From year one till now, right?
Mhm.
Both as in the education institution and now as a consultant or as a person who helps them with different things. And I think a lot has changed in the education industry in Malaysia. I mean, if we focus
Okay.
on Malaysia itself,
Okay.
you're right. I mean, during my time or your time or way before the 90s, we do a degree for the main purpose of getting a job, and that was it.
That's right.
And Ashok, if I ask you, I mean, you did the degree, how much of your degree do you remember, and how much of your degree actually contributes to your work these days? Very little, I would say. On
Okay. I was going to hold back my answers, but okay.
but that's actually quite the norm. Very seldom we hear people saying, "Oh, I studied the 4 years of the degree and I use every bit of it," right?
Mm.
But I think education has evolved in Malaysia. I mean, in 1997, there was a whole big move, and whole expansion. The government introduced something called the 3+0 degrees.
3+0.
3+0. And that was a whole paradigm shift for Malaysia.
Okay.
Because prior to that, institutions were just known as a high class tuition provider, right?
Wow.
It was
High
more
class tuition
teaching.
provider.
Yeah, it was just in high class. So colleges or institutions were known as a high class tuition provider, where it
Okay.
was more of a teaching institution. It was just a teaching institution, and they couldn't offer their own degrees. They only offered diplomas and certificates, and that was it, right? Or they had an affiliation with a university where all of us had to go overseas. And how many of us could do that?
Okay.
In 1997 or in 1996, if I'm not sure which exact year,
Sure.
the 3+0 was introduced, which means students now have the opportunity to complete the entire 3 years in Malaysia. They don't have
Okay.
to go overseas. And that opened up the gates to everyone. Those who couldn't afford to go overseas, those who said, okay, maybe I'll do 2 years here and then 1 year overseas. And that saw many of the institutions flourish because
Right.
neighboring countries, especially Indonesia,
Mm.
Vietnam, China, the neighboring countries in Southeast Asia started sending students by the busloads here to
Right.
complete their degree. So I think that was a very much a paradigm shift. Then the
Okay.
next shift started coming when institutions had now the right to apply for a full university status or university college status,
Okay. Okay.
which means that they had the resources in terms of the number of ex-PhD candidates,
Right.
the curriculum development, innovation, everything they had in terms of facility. So that's why you see now colleges that used to be called Help Institute is now Help University, or Sunway
Mm.
College is now Sunway University, or
Sure.
Taylor's College is now Taylor's University, right? And then the next shift came towards research and innovation, because
Okay. Okay.
having been a teaching institution,
Mhm.
research and innovation was never on the cards of institutions because they only wanted to teach,
Right.
earn the money, send students overseas. That was the role. But as they moved into the university status, academics had to do research, academics had to innovate. So that started the research and innovation.
Okay.
And then the next level was having foreign universities setting up branch campuses here.
Okay.
So in the likes of Monash, Nottingham, Curtin, Swinburne, we have the Iskandar region that started up with a couple of 10 institutions in the Iskandar region now.
Okay.
So I think Malaysia has done well in that sense. Education has evolved quite a bit, from what it was in the 90s to now.
Mhm.
So 25 years, a lot has happened in the tertiary level.
Okay. Okay. So what I'm hearing is a lot of this influence comes also from a policy point of view, right? From the
Yes.
government policies and all that. Of course, then the universities also said, okay, we need to do things differently. What can we do to add value? Let's focus on innovation, research and innovation and all that. I hear that, but also, you see, what we have seen is we've seen a cohort of people change, the
Mm.
students, right? Back in the 90s and all, I guess it would be mainly your Gen Z, Gen X's, maybe baby boomers, I don't know,
Yeah.
some of them working adults and all. But today, the cohort is different. How are they influencing what is needed for the market, and how are tertiary institutions evolving?
So I think that's where the demand is, right? What's the demand like? Because graduates or students have evolved as well.
Yes.
When I was a student, I was at Stamford College, a small college. It only had one canteen, and we totally enjoyed it. That was heaven to us. But these days, graduates expect different things. They want a
Okay.
whole lifestyle. So if you see a
Lifestyle.
good university who is out in a remote area, probably,
Okay.
and they're not doing well. Why? Because there's no lifestyle within that. So when I say lifestyle, is they want the cafes, they want everything that is close proximity, they want everything around the campus, a true campus living. That's one aspect to it, and I think in terms of programs as well, the expectation of programs, so institutions are now changing their program delivery from just
Okay.
having more traditional programs. Now they're having more certificates or programs, or combining academic programs with professional qualification, and having dual qualifications with people
Mhm.
coming up, because the demand of the industry is also more, right? The demand of the industry of a graduate is also more, because they expect someone to not only have an academic qualification, but they must have the soft skills, they must have the hard skills, they must have global perspective, like I mentioned earlier,
Yep. Yep.
entrepreneurial mindset. This was never the case in our time.
Hmm.
At our time, it was just, okay, you got a degree, okay, you got a first class honors or second upper, yes, you get a job, you get so on. But now it's very different. Organizations' expectation is different. Hence, in universities or higher education institutions need to adapt to that, or need to change to that, the need.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's more student, I would say it's more student-centered approach now.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, a student-centered approach now. So really looking into what students want, what graduates want, what the industry needs are. So yeah, so it's not easy. I understand the difficulties and the challenges that institutions go through. It's not an easy task, really.
Yeah, I like that. I like the fact that you mentioned that today the focus is really about student center. Put the student in the center and have an approach. And one of that is looking at their lifestyle. The other one is looking at the program itself, how
Yes.
robust it is, not only from an education point of view, qualification point of view, but from an experience point of view also. How to make them relevant for the industry. I've got a question about the industry, but before that, let me hand you to Malar first.
That's very generous of you. Before we continue, I think I was trying to get in and out, and I hope I had listened to some of the juicy bits that Gerald has shared. But before that, Luis Marias has come in again, once again, to say hello, and he says, very interesting topic. Luis, I'm not sure why we're not able to show your comments, so thank you for joining us again in the show. Luis was also one of our ardent fans. So I'm saying it in past tense because he got busy. Okay, now this is our second last show, literally second last guest for this year, Ashok. Yeah. Okay. I was listening to Gerald and tell me where I've missed out, if I've missed out, right? So I'm a little bit confused, right? Because I think Gerald gave us a very nice overview of the transition from what it was 25 years ago and where we are. And we are talking about market ready education.
Yep.
So market ready education means what does the industry need? And that's why we're having this conversation in leadership in Flow Asia, right, Ashok?
Yep.
Right? Now, so and this is something I'm not sure whether it's a biased question because I think I struggle with it, right? So we want to produce talent in the tertiary education system that's market ready, i.e., can you jump in from the university and straight to work, right? And that's what we are asking for, and that's what market ready education means, right? Because let's not waste any more time, and I'm sure students want that too. And based on what students want, right? Education, institutions are trying to shape and reshape themselves to meet that objective, to meet that outcomes, right? But what caught I don't know whether it's mine or heart, right? So I almost had a trigger point when Gerald said, what students are looking for is lifestyle,
Okay.
right? And I'm wondering, so I understand it's how, in businesses today, we're trying to get the right shares and the right party-like environment to engage employees, right? So but I'm wondering, right? When we look at, I have nothing against lifestyle, but I think it's fun. Yeah, it's a business. So I'm just wondering, do students who look into the education that they are looking for, right? Do they really know what the industry requires? Because what I'm seeing is that I find those in the education industry, as you said, Gerald, you know how hard they work. I mean, consulting for them, how hard they work to bring the many aspects of education to get them market ready. All right.
Yeah.
On one hand. On the other hand, is to do 3+0 or whatever type of programs plus certification programs. So we are upgrading our education, and upgrade here means you need to learn more in a shorter time. That's one hand. Because of that, we want to provide the lifestyle so that you don't have to go anywhere else and perhaps just be right in the university. So we're saying this too, yeah. But when you look at students and what students want, are we realistically achieving all of this in a real market ready situation? Because we do know that what employers tell us today, right? And you also do recruitment, so you'll be the best person to give us the feedback, right? We have the most intelligent people coming into our workforce, but they sometimes don't even know some really basic things of how life works. So there is a disconnect between their intellect, their intelligence, and the A's that they get to walk across to be at work at the space, right? Now, so my question is really, are we really, with all the changes that you're making, entrepreneurship mindset, power now the latest one, which I'm happy about, is power skills, right? We're adding more and more in the basket of tertiary education. Is it realistic? And is it really working? Or are we jumping on the bandwagon that we can do everything and push all of this to the universities and stress up our students and stress up the teachers, only to be disappointed later? That was a long question, but it was a difficult question. Yes, Gerald, back.
Yeah, it's long and a difficult question, but let me try to answer this. Yeah, I think there's no one answer that fits everything. I mean, it is a very challenging situation because on one hand, you have the expectation of the industry, right? And on the other hand, you also have the expectation of students or students who wanting to get into the institutions. And students are more well informed now of what the industry needs are, compared to many years ago. Because these days you have institutions having industries come into the institutions to give talks, to speak to graduates, to do some counseling, to give motivational talks. So I think students or graduates are now more exposed to the industry and they understand what the needs are. So I think that's a given. That has evolved quite a bit. Whether it's practical or whether it's working, now, to a certain extent, it is. To a certain extent, I think it is working. So if you take, there are some institutions that has incorporated some of these skill gaps into their curriculum. One of it is by giving them internship programs. So whether they do a 3 months internship or whether they do a 6 months internship with an industry, it makes a lot of difference, because internship these days are very different from before. Before, internship was you do photocopying, you make coffee for the managers, you do those sort of work, right? But these days, students do real work. Students are exposed to culture of organization. Students are going there to work on the areas that they're working on, and managers are more, managers are able to teach them or to guide them. So when interns come back to the institution, most of the time they would need to write a report, they would need to do a work on it, and you see a lot of things being done through their 3 months or 6 months internship. So I think that institutions are doing the right thing by bringing on industry into campus in various forms. Graduates going into the industry to learn a little bit more of culture, a little bit more of what the work is, whether it's accounting or whether it's psychology or whether it's marketing. So for example, someone getting into the big fours for accounting, for example, whether they're in the audit or advisory or financial reporting, they do real work. People say, oh, as auditors, you got to work until 2 a.m., you got to work until 3 a.m. They do that. And I hear interns telling me, oh, we had to work until 2 a.m. We had to follow our seniors to go and do certain things. And that's real work. So I think
I like the way you said photocopying is not real work. If people who are doing all the support work are listening to you, then you've surely made enemies there. But never mind, that's a different conversation.
Yeah. No, not that. But yeah.
Yeah. So now I know. Well, I know what you were trying to say, but because you said real work. But then again, Gerald, if you think about it, or if we think about it, right? Internship is so. If we look at the transition, we know internships have become more and more important, and it has also become a more of a longer term solution. So I know organizations that does 6 months to 1 year internship, right? Because they are also looking for the right talent. They want to invest in the right talent, and they want to invest in time. Yeah. But if you, I think correctly, you put it very nicely to say this is really a collaboration between organization, businesses, the corporate world, and the institution, right? Now, at the end of the day, it seems to me it is the corporate world that's doing the real work to get the students to be market ready. So,
okay.
Yeah, tell me.
So not true. They do a lot of work, yes. They do a lot
of work. I love
work
it when you do something. Okay, good.
In terms of what the work entails of, how the industry is, that's the work that they do, coming in to give that. But I think the institutions have also put in place structures and programs to expose students to the gaps. So for example, if you look at the QS report, the QS report on skills gaps of students. So they have the ones in Europe, they have in America, they one in Asia. But if you look in Asia, two of the biggest skills gaps is teamwork and communication. Then comes creativity, problem solving, adaptability, critical thinking, sustainability, and many more other areas as well. And these are areas that institutions or universities have taken on board to put into their curriculum. And how does that do? So, for example, like teamwork, they work on projects team projects. They work on team projects, team presentation. This is just one aspect of it, what I'm saying. Communication seems to be a big problem, communication, because graduates now, because of online education, because of all those sort of areas, teamwork and communication seems to be going down, right? So organizations, when we meet organizations, because we do the recruitment part, they would say, oh, they're good graduates, but they can't really communicate. They can't really communicate, or they're very passive. They're not aggressive enough to question, to say things. I think that's the biggest lack of what's happening. But I think institutions are working on that. So I think it's to bridge that gap, the skills gap. Universities alone cannot do it. They need to bring the industry in. They need to bring consultants like us in, to bridge that whole gap. And that is why most universities now have an industry advisory panel, right? Where industry experts come on board to advise on curriculum innovation, on how can they make the curriculum more industry relevant. They have industry people who come on board as adjunct professors, who come and share their knowledge in terms of what's happening in the industry, what can you expect in the industry. So what they're doing is, apart from the academic excellence that institutions are doing, they're bringing the industry in different manner and in different ways. So I think it is happening, but you will never get 100% Superman who's going to go into industry and say, I know it all, I'm going to come and work for you. But you're bridging that gap. You're bridging that gap, getting into the industry, you know a lot more, and so on.
Nice. Because what I'm hearing is that, we need knowledge and skills, which is provided at the university, right? Tertiary education.
Yes.
However, what the industry is also doing is it's trying to reduce the gap so that students who then go into the corporate world are able to adapt very quickly to the so-called real world, which means that the opportunity cost for corporations are lower, which means that institutions that do that, you value students who come from those institutions, which make them more market ready quickly, right?
Yes.
Having said that, right, I know we're looking at market ready education. You have said a lot from your consulting experience, why institutions need to change, right? But what is also happening now in the market, which is pretty interesting, is that we know that some large organizations, right? There's one big consulting firm. Now, organizations are now beginning to be open to say, I don't need someone with a degree. Degree is not a pre-qualification for a role or a job. If you can do the job, i.e., I can go on Coursera, acquire some skills, specific skills to my job. Because you started very well by asking Ashok, how much of his degree he really remembers or use, right? Thank goodness you didn't ask me that question and I wasn't there, right? But I think most of us will know the answer. We wonder. But having said that, foundation is a lot of unconscious knowledge that, comes and helps us to understand a lot of the more complex things, right? But the businesses are now really moving because of the very quick change that needs to happen. Large corporations are now open to say, you don't need a degree to be with us. Now, where does that put the education industry if this becomes the new norm later?
Yeah, good. I mean, an interesting question. And you can see that shift happening now, and that is why a lot of institutions are also offering micro-credentials, short programs, micro-credentials to supplement the academic qualification that they're doing. I mean, personally for me, I think an academic degree is important, or qualification, because that gives you the kind of foundation or basics to move on to different things. As you move into the industry, of course, you need to constantly upgrade yourself. I mean, imagine someone who has done computer science. I did computer science 25 years ago. What I did is totally obsolete now. So if I continued and didn't do anything to upgrade myself in this area of computer science or programming, I would be obsolete. I believe, and that is relevant to all areas of expertise, even in accounting, for example, or even in finance, even in banking, psychology. So I think organizations now, they're saying, yes, you don't have to have a degree, but if you have other qualifications, it will be considered. So, for example, if you take an accounting graduate, someone may not have an accounting degree, but someone may have an ACCA professional qualification, an ICAW, or a CIMA qualification, or CP Australia, one of those professional qualifications. And that can get them into a good job. Most of the accountants of today, the older accountants of today, never really did a degree. They did these professional qualifications and went into the accounting industry, right? So that's one example. So I think it depends on the job, it depends on the demand, it depends on the need of the organization as well. But for me, I personally think a degree is still important, an academic qualification, because that gives you the base and a strong foundation to build on as you go on in your career or as you build your career. And then you go on to the other qualifications. I mean, even for myself, I did a degree and a master's, but I continue to learn. I continue to take short courses, micro credentials, because I wanted to learn more and I wanted to upgrade myself. And I think that needs to happen irrespective.
So if we are spending so much of time learning and in continuous learning, that's inevitable, in any industry, right?
Yes.
It seems like there is a need in the market for us to update and upgrade ourselves, upskill ourselves, or reskill ourselves with whatever that is latest, because otherwise, you become irrelevant very quickly, right? Now, so it looks like the future of education is continuous learning. All right.
Yes.
Which then puts the question back where we talk about market ready education. Is it time for us to now say, okay, can we see what the corporate world needs in the next 5 years and maybe offer only short courses beyond a certain foundational level, right?
Yeah.
To pick and choose, be more specific about the skills that's required, right? And just focus. Do you see that happening, or do you see that as a future of market ready education, Gerald?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I see a lot of changes will happen within the next 10 to 20 years, in the education industry. I mean, I know we're talking about tertiary education, but education really stems from the time you go to school, right? Primary school. So I think that a change has to happen, whether it's in primary, secondary, and then carry on, right? At the moment, our primary and secondary schools, and not only in Malaysia, but in many places, teaches you the traditional subjects. I think that needs to change. My personal view is I think that needs to change. We need to teach people about teamwork. We need to teach people about communication. We need to teach people about money. We need to teach people about problem solving. We probably can teach them about NLP. We can teach them about many things. And these are information or areas that is not in the curriculum of primary and secondary education. So when they come into the tertiary education, most students, what happens is after their O levels or Form 5, they get totally confused because they don't know what's happening. They don't know what to choose. They don't know, from a total different paradigm. So I think education needs to start from the beginning, and I think that will happen. I think change will happen. Many countries are already moving towards that. Many organizations are already starting to kind of input those sort of information into the curriculum. So you will see a drastic change. There might come a time when degrees may no longer be relevant. You don't need to do a degree, right? Or you don't need to do geography, for example, or you don't need to do history, for example, but you need to do many things, many other things. So for example, like mindset change. How do you handle stress? How do students handle stress? Do they know? They don't, because it's not taught. How do they handle all these assignments coming to them and the stress level and so on? Nothing is taught in this area. So I do see a huge change in education in time to come. And I hope it changes, because I think these are all very good skills or relevant skills that needs to be into the industry.
Nice. The more I listen to you, the more I overwhelm and feeling for the young people of the future. Because, and Ashok, I promise you, this is the last bit I'm going to say, because I'm getting carried away. But because I mean, I agree with you, Gerald. I totally agree with you. But I think one of those things that we need to seriously perhaps think about, right, Ashok, is that, we're now saying teamwork is the job of education. We didn't have to be taught teamwork. Stress management is the job of education. Healthy lifestyle is the job of education. And I suspect the reason we need to teach life skills at the education level is because we have not allowed our young people to learn. Because we are bombarding them with so much of input, which is purely intellectual. They have no time to live. I mean, think about the older generation, right? Teamwork was natural because we had to share resources. We had less, we had to share. Stress management was natural because you had to multitask and achieve a lot of things. And as a result, the skill was stress management, priority management. Today, what we are saying is that I'm going to throw everything to the young people and the education industry because it is now your problem. And what we're going to do is we're going to teach you more so that you can absorb all of this more. Because if you look at the transition that is not happening from education to be market ready is actually life skills, right? And if you are so busy acquiring, just studying the different skills intellectually, where do you have time to live? Which is then the internship bit, right? So if you look at internship bit, if you look at leaders really don't even have time to manage their own people. Now we're giving them interns to actually train. So I think it's I don't know whether it's interesting or sad, but maybe it's time for us to look at education as a whole systemic issue more than it is just the industry's issue or the corporate world's issue, right? Because I think it includes parenting, it includes, basic education, it includes policies, because as we include more of all of this from prestigious institution, we're also making education expensive, which is why we'll then need to introduce financial management to our young people, So I'm just seeing how stressful it's becoming. But anyway, thank you very much. Go Ashok, I'm going to pass it to you. I think it was fantastic, but we are looking at the complexity of any form of business that actually needs to be relevant. I think has become a lot more complex, and we need innovative ideas to do this, which is why we're glad that we have you on the show to tell us what's really happening in the market. Okay, Ashok, I take a break.
I just want to add on.
I
think very interesting, Mala, your concept, what you mentioned. But I think education starts from home. So it's not just the institution, but education is from the cradle to the grave, right? I like cradle to grave. I mean, that is why when you go to the corporates, there are a lot of corporate trainings happening. I mean, all three of us are trainers here. And why do corporates have so many training programs for their staff? Because it's either to inculcate those sort of skills, or reteach them, or they're relearning skills that they never did in the tertiary education or in their primary and secondary. And that is why, like teamwork, for example, if you take teamwork, why is there so many team building programs now? Why do organizations want to do team building? Why do organizations want to do innovative thinking? Why do organizations want to do communication programs? So it's really from cradle to grave, right? Education never stops. And that is why in the beginning I said it's a lifelong learning process. It'll never stop. The demand will always be different. The demand will always be there. Graduates or individuals like us will always be expected to learn and relearn and innovate.
Yes, I mean, so as I did say last, but I think again going back into the training education, I think what's really happening is, I mean, think about why do we need communication skills? Is it because we don't have communication skills? Or the thing is this, right? When we talk about communication skills in organization, we are going back to basics over and over again. We're not building on from what we have learned. And I'm hoping HRDF is listening to this because I do know it's their intention also to actually shift, right? Again, I think the mindfulness that is required to put things in context, to tighten up and to see how we can continuously upgrade, not do rework. I think what's happening in the training industry, there's a lot of rework. I mean, if you need to attend a team building program every year to become a better team, obviously there are some things that's not set well, right? Yes, we should go for team building program, but it should build on us to become stronger, acquiring new, more updated skills, right? Or upgraded skills beyond the basics. So anyway, that is probably we need to do a whole series of that next year in the beginning as we start the year. So thank you. Yeah, I agree with you, but I think it's a lot more complex, and maybe we are not mindful enough that we are either firefighting or we are having education overall in this part of the world just to treat symptoms, right? People are not talking, you go for team building. Customer complain, you can't answer a question, you go for communication, right? So we're treating symptoms over and over again, and it's not solving problems in the long term. Neither is it upgrading our skills in the real sense if I'm going for the same thing over and over again. Anyway, okay, sure. I am really done. It was too close to my heart for me to let go. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that, Malar. So Dr. Vicky, who's been on our show before, he says innovation in education is an area that is getting traction these days, and much more to develop on this as well. Right? And Ivan, who was here yesterday, last week says, "Who says what if copying is in real work? That's all I do these days."
No, Ivan, that's what I do as well.
I love you, Ivan.
Okay, so
Ivan, that's what I do as well.
Gerald, from what I'm hearing from you and Malar's discussion is this: yes, education is evolving, just like how workplace is evolving. Organizations are evolving from hierarchical kind of structures now becoming more flat. There's so many changes that's happening even in organization, and education is trying to keep up. And that's why you said education is also looking at from how do we build social skills in terms of lifestyle, how do you look at the professional skills that needs to be built up by having a lot of collaboration and all that. I think, yes, there is progress. The depth of it, like what the Malar was talking about, the consciousness of it would have to be involved also. But I'd just like to very quickly ask of you, right? Before this is the last question for you. What are some good examples that you have already seen of collaboration between corporations and tertiary education that is working well today? That could be the beacon of hope for tomorrow.
I think there's many. There's many out there, but I'll probably name a few. But this is not. I'm just naming a few. But I think a lot of institutions do really well. Like I said, the top 20 or top 10 institutions do it really well. So if I take Sunway, for example, Sunway University, because I speak in the university quite a bit, and I am also an industry advisory panel with the university. So I know a little bit more of what happens in the university. I think what they do is they have a very strong collaboration with the industry. They bring on the industry through the industry advisory panel. The industry players hired as adjunct professors to come and give talks, not only to undergraduate students, but to postgraduate students. They have a lot of roundtable discussions, dialogues that happens within academia and industry to bridge the gap. And they also do a lot of research initiatives with the industry. So, I mean, traditionally, research that academics do, it is for publications. It is for publications to present to papers. That those papers may not be so relevant to industry needs. But I think what some of the institutions like Sunway is doing, they are working with industry to develop research that can be used, that can be used in industry. I think those are some of the things. And within Sunway itself, there is an accounting division called Sunway Test. Sunway Test. And Sunway Test just focuses on professional accounting qualifications. And they have collaborated with the big fours or the second tier firms to come in to do stuff. So even you go to Sunway Test, you see there are rooms that is allocated to Ernst & Young, PwC, Deloitte. And it's very interesting. And they use these rooms to come and speak to the graduates, to come and counsel them, to come and give them a lot more information. So I think similar to Sunway, many of the institutions that have the resources and able to do it is doing quite a bit in terms of bridging that gap and working with corporations to do that. Even for scholarships, even for information. Yeah.
We've got a question here from Dr. Vicky, right? If I may ask Gerald, now can I say no when the question is already up there? Team building activities are not designed to generate new knowledge, but rather to improve communication, collaboration, and problem-solving skills among team members. This is quoted in many papers, but do you personally feel this is what it is? Or there could be an innovative way where these elements mentioned above, collaboration, problem-solving, communication, could be coupled in a way where new knowledge can be parted in a more fun way? Or will this disrupt things further?
I mean, of course. I mean, yes, team building is to improve communication, collaboration. So if he's asking, I mean, in terms of can it be done in a more innovative way or in a more fun way of doing it? Yes, of course. And I think we see that now happening. I mean, a lot of team building programs have changed, from what it used to be. So there are many team building programs, different strategies being used, using games, gamification, using different areas of collaboration, different areas of interaction, using games, using cards, there's so many out there. So I think the evolvement or change is happening, and you see that happening as well. So it's not the traditional team building where it's just to look at communication and collaboration, but it's more to that now.
Okay.
Nice, thank you. Of course, because he said team building, I have to add on. Vicky, you need to buy me coffee. This is one of my favorite areas. Now, I think the whole idea about team building is how we can achieve more together, right? So if you look at the concept of team building, is together we achieve more. And I think team building programs are supposed to be built to whatever that is stopping us from achieving that more together, whether it's communication, whether it's resilience, whether it's problem solving, or whether it's innovation. In an innovation program, team building can be a natural consequence. In a team building program, innovation can be a natural consequence. But I think the difference is what we're talking about today with Gerald, is that how mindful are we in putting whatever education, in this case, it's team building program, how do we put that together, right? Because I think, unfortunately, a lot of us are exposed to team building activities, which is let's go, play together, have fun, build memories, and we are a better team. Because we build rough together, we will know how to build our business together, right? And I think that's where it's a fun team building program, but it's not a mindful intervention. So, Vicky, I think all the things that you said is possible. Some great organization, our friends in the industry are really doing fantastic work because they're very mindful of the outcome and what is required by the people. Again, this can only happen when we work as partners and team to actually meet the objective. All right. So for more information, please PM me for coffee and I'll give you details. All right. That's not for Wiki. That was advertisement for Hearts and Minds. All right. Moving on. Before we close, Gerald, if there is just like one dream that you have, what would that be for market-ready education?
I think like what I said earlier when I started, I mean, and I always like what Nelson Mandela's quote is: education is the weapon that can change the world. And I think that is so true. I think education needs to evolve. I think education needs to change for the better. It can't remain as it is, as we see how the industry has moved, how people have moved. One dream, I think, is for everyone to just keep learning. Just keep learning, keep educating yourself, keep upskilling yourself. To be relevant. Whether it's the institutions, how to be relevant for the graduates, to be relevant for individuals like us, to be relevant. I think education is the key to it. So just continuously and keep learning. And before I end and before you take me off, I want to thank you, Ashok and Shamini, for inviting me here. Thank you very much. Such an excellent platform. I think Leadership in Flow Asia is an excellent platform for everyone to come in and listen. Hopefully next year you do more, and years to come as well. Right. So thank you so much for having me here.
Oh, thank you very much, Gerald. So what I'm hearing is, I'm just wrapping it up, is what we are hearing is, yes, education is evolving, tertiary education is evolving. From the business point of view, even the organizations are evolving, and your advice and what you're seeing is also everything is evolving, and continuous learning is a mindset, is a habit, is a behavior that we all should start adopting, whether it's from the organization point of which they are, and even tertiary education. And tertiary education need to work in partnership with organizations to identify the gap, fill the gap, and to help raise the education levels of everyone, right? So that this weapon can be an important weapon to change the world. With that, thank you very much for saying yes, Gerald.
And Gerald, thank you very much for being a great supporter of this show, and especially sharing the vision of Going Asia. So yeah, now that's you've been there with us. Thank you very much. With that, we're going to say goodbye to Gerald. Hello, friends.
Wow, that was interesting. I could see your passion. I could see Gerald's passion. I think we need to have a coffee, and Vicky will be the referee in between, right? He's already accepted your coffee.
You need to come to Malaysia, okay? I'm having coffee with Vicky in Malaysia, so you need to come to Malaysia.
Okay.
But I think what Gerald has done for us is Gerald has opened up more spaces for us to be educated, whether we're in the corporate world, in whatever role that we're playing. How can we now synergize to make sure we make systemic changes?
Yeah.
So that our changes are not, repeated. Our education is not repeated, but how do we bring all of this together systemically and make the world that we want for our future a better world? So with that, Ashok, I think it's time to say goodbye. Thank you very much for those who are still tuned with us. It's past 6 minutes. Shami is going to kill us, but I'll blame it on the time difference because I'm in Singapore. What a lame excuse.
Yeah,
I know, right?
Okay. I know, right?
I know, it's so. But thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you all for joining us.
Yes, excited to meet the people in Singapore, and for the others, I'm sure you will see updates. Stay tuned with us on LinkedIn and subscribe to our YouTube as we post all the happenings in our Leadership in Flow Asia, as well as our Leadership Festival. With that, this is Malhar signing off again.
Ashok, bye-bye.